Every single day we're faced with choices, right? Should you binge that new show or, maybe get some sleep? Should a car company build more SUVs or more electric cars? It all boils down to trade-offs. And lucky for us, economics has this amazing tool to help us see those choices super clearly. It's called the Production Possibilities Frontier.
I know, that sounds totally impossible, doesn't it? It's like trying to have your cake and eat it too. But here's the thing, it actually happened. Stick around because we're going to look at this incredible moment in history that shows exactly how this can be possible. And it's the perfect way to understand the economic tool we're digging into today.
Okay, so here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll break down what the PPF even is. Then we'll see how it helps us visualize something called opportunity cost. We'll touch on efficiency and growth, then jump right into that wild WWI story. And finally, we'll talk about why any of this matters to you today. Let's do it.
All right, let's kick things off. Section 1. To really get what the PPF is all about, we've got to start with the one single question that's at the heart of, well, all of economics.
And the simple, one-word answer? Scarcity. I mean, think about it. We only have so much time, so much money, so many people to do things, but our list of wants? It's pretty much endless. And it's that fundamental problem that forces us to choose. And that's exactly where this whole production possibilities frontier idea comes into play.
So the first thing to get is that the PPF is just a model. It's a simplification, right? It takes our super complex world and boils it down to just two products. And its whole job is to show us the absolute maximum combination of those two things an economy can create, if everything is running perfectly. It's kind of like the ultimate economic speed limit, the absolute edge of what's possible.
So, how do we see this? Well, we use a super simple graph. On one axis, let's put one product, say automobiles. And on the other axis, we'll put something totally different, like aircraft carriers. There we go. That's the setup for our little imaginary economy.
Okay, now see this curve we just added? That is the frontier. Think of it this way. Any single point on that line is a possible combo of cars and carriers we can make if every single resource we have, every worker, every factory, is going full tilt. It is the absolute limit of what we can do.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This line, this frontier, it does more than just show our limits. It beautifully illustrates one of the most fundamental ideas in economics, opportunity cost.
Okay, so think about it. If we're already on that line, we're at 100% capacity. So what happens if we want to make more cars? Well, we can't just magically create new resources. We have to move them from building aircraft carriers over to the car factories. The number of aircraft carriers we give up, that is the opportunity cost of getting those extra cars. It's what you sacrifice to get something else.
Now, you might see a PPF that's a straight line. That would mean the trade-off is always the same. But let's be real, that's not how the world works. In reality, the curve is almost always bowed outward like this. And that shape tells us something really important. It shows increasing opportunity cost. So why does that happen? Well, it's because our resources, they're not interchangeable.
Let me give you a super simple example. Let's say we've got 5 people who can make either burgers or pizzas. Now look at Ariel. She's a burger-making machine, but some of the other folks, they're better at pizzas. So if we're making only burgers and we decide, hey, let's make one pizza, who do we move first? The best pizza maker, of course. The cost in lost burgers is low. But if we want to make more and more pizzas, we eventually have to pull someone like Ariel off the grill. She's not great at pizza, so we lose a ton of burgers for just a few extra pizzas. The cost, the opportunity cost, just keeps going up. That's why the curve bows out.
Okay, so the PPF is great for showing trade-offs, but it also gives us this amazing snapshot of an economy's overall health and where it has room to grow. So let's break this down. Being anywhere on the curve, that's the sweet spot, that's efficiency. But what if we're at a point inside the curve? Well, that means something's wrong. We're being inefficient. A perfect example is a recession, right? You've got high unemployment, factories sitting empty, we're not living up to our potential. And a point way out beyond the curve, that's the dream. It's currently impossible, but it's where we want to go.
So the big question is, how do we get to those impossible points? How do we reach for the dream? The answer is economic growth. And that comes from a few key things. Getting more resources, making our current resources better, think about what a better educated workforce can do, or, the big one, through new technology that just lets us do more with what we've got. And this is what that growth looks like on our graph. The whole frontier shifts outward. It's like the entire economic playing field gets bigger. And suddenly, those combinations of goods that were totally impossible before,
They're on the table. We can actually have more cars and more aircraft carriers. That's a game changer.
Okay, theory is great, but let's make this real. It's time to go back to that puzzle I mentioned at the very beginning. Let's apply everything we just learned to the actual real-world data from the US economy during World War II. Check this out. What you're looking at here plots the production of goods for civilians, cars, refrigerators, against goods for national defense. And each of those dots is a specific year, from 1940 to 1946. This isn't just a textbook example anymore. This is what actually happened. So let's follow the story, year by year. We start in 1940. The country is still reeling from the Great Depression with a huge unemployment rate of 14.6%. So where are we on our graph? We're way inside the frontier. We're inefficient. Then, from 41 to 43, war mobilization kicks in. You see the country move towards the frontier. It's a classic trade-off, fewer civilian goods for a massive ramp-up in defense. But then, from 43 to 45, something absolutely amazing happens. The whole curve shifts outward. The U.S. managed to produce even more for the war and make more for people at home. It solved the impossible puzzle. Then finally, in 46, you see the shift back along that new expanded frontier towards a peacetime economy.
And if you want to know how they made that first jump from inside the curve to the edge, just look at this number. By 1944, unemployment had dropped to a staggering 1.2%. That is the lowest in American history. Basically, every single person and resource that could be put to work was. That's what moving to the frontier looks like in the real world.
But let's not forget the other side of this. That massive shift towards defense had a huge opportunity cost. And nobody understood this better than President Eisenhower, who had been the supreme Allied commander during the war. Years later, he gave this incredibly powerful speech. He said, "Every gun that is made, every warship launched, signifies in the final sense a theft from those who hunger and are not fed." He was talking about the schools, the hospitals, the homes that weren't built. That is the heavy price of opportunity cost. So when you see a story like that, it just drives home the point, doesn't it? The PPF is so much more than just some dry graph in an economics textbook.
This is really the core of it all. All those abstract ideas we talked about, they map perfectly to this real, dramatic story. Remember when we said a point inside the curve means inefficiency? That was the Great Depression. Moving along the curve means a trade-off? That was the heartbreaking guns versus butter decision of the war. And shifting the curve outward means growth? That was the incredible innovation and productivity of the American home front. Theory and reality, side by side.
At the end of the day, that's what the PPF really is. It's not just a graph. It's a way of thinking. It's a mental model that forces us to look scarcity right in the eye, to really think about our options, and to understand that every single choice we make, as people, as companies, as countries, has a cost. It makes the invisible visible. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The model is just as powerful today as it was for looking back at WW2. I mean, think about the big trade-offs we face right now, like balancing environmental protection with economic growth, or deciding between spending on healthcare versus exploring space. The PPF challenges all of us to look at the world around us and ask, what are the great trade-offs of our time?